Hello and welcome back to the Specialist Learning Podcast. I'm Katie Nelson, Dyslexia and Dyscalculia Specialist and founder of the Dyslexia and Dyscalculia Academy. Each month I use this space to share reflections from practice, insights from specialist work and things I see every day when supporting learners and families. The aim is always to give you something really practical to think about, something that helps you understand dyslexia and dyscalculia more deeply, and something that you can take straight into your own practice or home life. So, wherever you're listening from today, whether you're driving, having a cup of tea, or just taking that quiet moment, I'm really glad that you're here. Today I want to talk about something that almost every tutor, teacher or parent will definitely hear at some point when supporting a learner. Those three small words. I don't know. If you work with learners with dyslexia or dyscalculia, you will probably hear this quite often. Sometimes it comes straight after a question is asked. Sometimes the learner pauses for a moment, looks away, and then quietly says it. Other times it comes very quickly, almost automatically, before they've even had time to think. And when this happens, it can leave the adult supporting them feeling a little unsure, really, about what to do next. Do they genuinely not know the answer? Have they forgotten something that was previously learned? Or is it something else that's happening at that moment? One of the most important things we can actually do is understand about learning. And that is retrieving information from memory is not a single step. It's actually part of a process. So when a learner is asked a question, the brain has to locate the information, bring it forward into working memory, organise it, and then express it in some way. That might be verbally, in writing, or through an action. And for many of our learners with dyslexia or dyscalculia, several things are happening at the same time during that moment. They may be holding the question in working memory, trying to search their memory for the information, thinking about how to actually phrase the answer, monitoring whether the answer sounds correct, and managing the emotional pressure that can come when asked a question. That really is a lot for the brain to coordinate in a very short space of time. I'm sure you'll agree. So when a learner says, I don't know, it does not always mean the knowledge isn't there. Sometimes it means the retrieval pathway is overloaded. Sometimes the learner needs a little longer to organise their thoughts. Sometimes they know part of the answer, but they're not actually sure how to express it. And sometimes previous experiences of getting things wrong have actually created a protective response where saying, I don't know, feels safer than them actually having a go and attempting the answer. This is where our role as tutors, teachers and parents become really, really important here. So instead of focusing only on whether the answer is correct, we can actually begin to pay attention to what is happening during the retrieval process. So in other words, instead of only asking, did you get it right? We begin to ask, what happened when I asked the question? For example, some learners pause before responding, so they might look away, go quiet. You might find your learners kind of staring into space for a moment. That pause is often the brain searching for information. Other learners respond very quickly with, I don't know. And you'll see in some cases this has become a little bit of a habit, actually, over time, especially if the learner has experienced repeated difficulty retrieving information under pressure. Some learners start answering, but you'll find that they stop halfway through a sentence. So this can indicate that the retrieval process began successfully, but became overloaded when they tried to organise their response. You might also notice learners repeating the question aloud. I notice this a lot during diagnostic assessments, actually. And this can help them hold the information in working memory whilst they're searching for the answer. Others might talk around the answer using phrases like, that thing we did before, or sometimes you might hear, the one from last week, while they try to locate the exact word or idea. And all of these behaviours tell us something important about how the learner's brain is processing information. And when we begin to notice them more carefully, we start to gain valuable insight into what is happening during those moments of recall. To support you with this, I've created a small observation tool called the Observing Retrieval Checklist. I've designed it to help tutors, teachers, and parents notice what is happening when a learner is trying to recall information. Rather than focusing only on whether the answer is correct, the checklist encourages you to observe the process. For example, it prompts you to notice how the learner begins their response. Do they pause before answering? Do they look away while thinking? Do they say, I don't know, very quickly? Do they start answering and then stop halfway through? It also encourages you to notice patterns in the learner's verbal responses. Do they give very short answers? Do they give longer explanations that become a little unstructured? Do they repeat the question before answering? Do they correct themselves as they speak? There are also prompts to notice accuracy signals in quite a neutral way. For example, whether the learner recalls part of the information but not all of it, whether they mix up similar ideas or remember things in the wrong order. You might also notice physical or emotional cues during recall. Some learners fidget or move around, others become very still. Some show quite visible frustration, and others appear calm but hesitant. And over time, these observations can help you notice patterns. Perhaps retrieval looks different on certain times of the day. Have you noticed that? Perhaps the learner recalls information more easily verbally than in writing. Perhaps pressure or time limits affect their responses. These kinds of insights are incredibly helpful because they move us away from guessing and towards fully understanding our learners. And instead of assuming a learner cannot recall something, we begin to see what might be interfering with the retrieval process. Sometimes tutors and parents discover that the learner actually knows more than it first appeared, but the pathway to retrieval simply needs a little more support. Sometimes we notice that giving the learner a few extra seconds of thinking time makes a significant difference. Sometimes reducing the number of things they need to hold in working memory at once helps the answer come more easily. And sometimes just creating a calmer, less pressured moment allows the learner to attempt recall more confidently. Interestingly, when tutors begin observing retrieval in this way, the phrase, I don't know, often starts to appear less frequently. Not because the learner suddenly knows everything by any means, but because the environment now feels safer for trying. And when our learners feel safe to attempt an answer, the retrieval process becomes easier over time. If you'd like to try this approach in your own sessions or at home, you can download the Observing Retrieval Checklist linked in the session notes for this episode. I've designed it to be something really simple that you can glance at whilst working with your learner, helping you to notice patterns and understand what is happening beneath the surface. Before we finish today, I'd like to leave you with a small reflection to take you into your next learning moment. The next time a learner says, "I don't know," please just pause for a moment and ask yourself this question. What might be happening in the learner's mind during retrieval right now? Because very often that moment tells us far more about learning than the answer itself. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope it's given you something practical to reflect on in your own practice or at home. And if you're listening on Spotify or another podcast platform, make sure you check the session notes where you'll find the supporting resource linked to this episode. And if you're listening inside the Tutor Vault, you'll know that alongside each podcast episode, you can access a growing library of specialist tools designed to support learners with dyslexia and dyscalculia. If you're not inside the Tutor Vault yet and you like access to those resources, you can head over to www.dyslexia-academy.com. Thank you again for being here. Until next time, take care and keep supporting learning with understanding.